before. Don't worry, darling.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Courtney, you can call me Courts, and today we are doing a very casual movie chat from my car. Today's subject is indeed Don't Worry Darling. Olivia Wilde's Don't Worry Darling. And it feels like, honestly, 3 years since I've watched this movie because I have been working in film all week. Like those 15-hour days, you know, after a while it all just starts to blur together. And that is also the reason why we were doing this from my car today, because I am on my way to a night shoot. It is my last day of work for the week, but I still wanted to try and get this video out while it's still fresh and while Don't Worry Darling is still like fresh in your minds and sort of fresh in mine. But before we get into Don't Worry Darling, please take a second to like this video, subscribe to my channel. Otherwise, I'm not gonna waste your time with any more yammering, so let's just get into the basics of the plot / summary of Don't Worry Darling. If you have no idea what this movie is about, it's probably for the best, but let's get into it. I saw someone describe this movie as a feminist fever dream, and honestly I couldn't find a more perfect description. This movie is set in the 1950s where Jack and Alice, a young couple, live together in a sort of utopia town / experimental town where the men go to work and the women stay at home. It isn't until Alice starts sort of figuring out these cracks in her reality that she starts questioning why she's there, how she got there in the first place. And that is where our psychological thriller begins. Fair warning now, as of this point in the video, there are going to be a plethora of spoilers. Moving on from our summary in a nutshell, let's talk about some of the themes and tones that I noticed in this movie right off the bat. Themes and tones of feminism, which makes perfect sense because if we look at Olivia Wilde's first film, Booksmart, it was also like a mini feminist love story manifesto. And the thing that these two movies have in common, the same writer. Sarah Silverman also wrote Booksmart, also wrote Don't Worry Darling, also both directed by Olivia Wilde. So it's not a surprise that we are noticing these themes of feminism once again. However, with Don't Worry Darling, it's mostly a feminist narrative on men controlling women. We hear it, we see it throughout the film. In the dialogue, there's moments where they straight up say it's about control, it's all about power. And that is what we see not only between Jack and Alice, but we also see it with Frank, the organizer of this utopia town. Frank, played by Chris Pine, has gathered these men to work in his utopia. And what do they get out of it? Control, power, glory. Mostly control and power though. Chris Pine's character has set up this sort of utopia matrix simulation where he recruits men who want to control their women, and he has them sign up to this program where they live in a simulated town called Victory. So every day when the men wake up and go to work, they leave the simulation and actually go to work. And then when they come back, they join their wives in the simulation where they are in like a mini medical induced coma living in this daydream land of 1950. Obviously the choice to set it in the 1950s was like made perfect sense for the tones of the film. I think overall, cinematically, we could have seen more of those tones, especially when we talk about control and power and symmetry, which is something they talk about a lot, like symmetry and like mirroring, but we don't actually see too much of it in the cinematography, but we'll get to that. In the second act of the film, where Alice and Frank, the controller of their little matrix, are having almost like a power off, like a power stance, fighting for control at this dinner table. And I love it so much. There's this moment where Harry Styles, Jack, pulls out the chair to sit at the head of the table, and Florence Pugh, Alice, sits in his place and says, "Thank you, darling." So she is now at the head of the table, and she's sitting directly across Frank, and they're having this sort of power stance off, like almost Western style dialogue gun show.
He's lying to us. He's lying to all of us.
Alice, Bunny, your best friend, is worried about you. She thinks that you need help. Is that why she's not here tonight? Because you didn't want to be reminded
He's using you.
of
He's using all of us. Do you even know what the Victory Project actually is? Have you ever asked?
Do you?
Essentially, they're rivaling each other and they're trying to keep everyone else at the table on their side. Eventually, throughout the scene, Alice loses that power. What I love about this scene is that it proves that the patriarchy is still as present as it was in the past. Okay, now I just want to talk a little bit about the acting. I love Harry Styles. I have loved him since he was in One Direction. I'm a One Direction girly. If you go onto my channel, you can see my fangirl video and cringe at it for me. So far, we've only seen Harry Styles in Dunkirk, and that is a Christopher Nolan film, a massive, massive film where he had like a few lines and a few scenes, so it's very easy, an easy starting place, if you will. But to jump from that into a feature film where he was probably number 2 on the call sheet, you know, he's carrying a lot of the scenes. I think that, as honestly as I can be, he has potential.
You and me.
Always. You and me.
Emotional range is just not there for me, and I think about how Shia LaBeouf was supposed to be in this role, and I just can't stop obsessing over how he would have knocked it out of the park. He would have brought so much more richness to the character. He would have brought more layers to the scene. Harry meets those emotional moments, like near the end where he realizes he's like betrayed Alice and essentially called her into the authorities. He's like sitting in the car and he's screaming, and I'm like, oh, it was so close, but I think that moment could have had a lot more potential with a much more seasoned actor. Otherwise, I love Harry. Happy to see him pursuing acting. A little bit offended when he said he didn't know what he was doing when it came to acting. I'm like, bro, do you know how many people are fighting for the roles that you're just being handed? No? Okay, maybe work on it. But I think that this film will also set a tone for him in Hollywood, and maybe we'll see a lot more range from him in the future. It's obvious to me that Florence Pugh carried the film. She's in 90% of it, but she's just such an excellent, seasoned, trained actor, and I am obsessed with her. Even if the writing is not good, she makes it good. And I'm not saying that the writing for this film was particularly bad, but we will talk about some of the holes. When it comes to Chris Pine, the other like major actor in this film, I didn't realize how much I liked him. I think I've only seen him in like sci-fi stuff, his comedies, you know? But to see him in this position of power, pretty exciting. And he made some choices that a lot of people probably wouldn't have noticed. But as an actor, when you're playing someone in a position of power, I think the best thing that you can do, which he does, and he executes perfectly, is be calm and quiet. And that is like one of the most terrifying things ever. People who have an emotional flatline are terrifying, and he did it perfectly. I think I want to see Chris Pine as a villain more often. It is tragic because we had so many excellent actors in this movie, and they were sort of more plot points like than supporting cast, and I wish we had got to see more of their character development. I wish we got to see more character from Jack and Alice. So let's talk about the cinematography. The cinematographer for this film was Matthew Lebetic. I no French, no parlez-vous français. Overall, the movie was super stylistic, beautifully shot, stunning moments throughout the whole movie. We get those like coffee cup, egg moments throughout the film to show us the synchronicities and the structure of this simulation that Alice is living in, which I love. I love that style of shooting. But like I said, as far as cinematography goes, I really wish we had seen more of that, like symmetrical synchronicities. I think there was a lot of moments that were missed on that, and there was quite a few things that I didn't understand when it came to cinematography. Like they kept showing us this flash of dancers like in this trippy way, and I still don't fully understand it. So if you get it, leave me a comment, because I don't understand what was with the ballerinas the whole time, that they're in control, that they have perfect control over their movements. Let me know what you think. For a psychological thriller though, the lighting was quite like bright and airy, which was interesting because a lot of the times these psychological thrillers live in this like low exposure zone where it's a little spooky and like a little dark. So to have this like bright, like beautiful lighting and bright costumes, it was an interesting choice, and yeah, it was definitely really easy on the eyes. Okay, so moving on to music and sound. I think a lot of the music and sound were kind of like recycled stylistic choices that we're seeing from a lot of A24 type movies. When Alice wraps her head up in the saran wrap and everything else is quiet, but you can hear the stickiness of the saran wrap wrapping as she pulls it out of the box. It definitely highlights that moment, and it definitely draws in the audience to pay attention, and it kind of makes it more eerie because you're like isolated in that specific moment. The moment that I thought was interesting is when Alice is in her delusion, when her world is sort of shattering around her, and she has this like almost vision of herself being like pressed up against the wall like crushing in on her. At the end of that shot, we hear like the crush of bones, and then she snaps out of it. Again, these are all amazing things that draw us into that scene and kind of make us feel exactly what she's going through. Just a lot of choices that just jar us back into the scene, like very jarring. But those are like my main thoughts on the film, and now I want to talk about some of the plot points where I feel like there are some holes and where we might have some unanswered questions. When it comes to these unanswered plot points, I'm specifically thinking about the plane. I cannot stop thinking about the little red airplane and the significance of it. Even the plane crash. How does it tie together? What sense does it make? It makes none. They never reference it again. They never talk about it. They never let us know what it could possibly mean. If you have any idea about the plane or you have any theories, please let me know, because I've been racking my brain. I can't figure it out. What is the significance of the tiny red plane? Another thing that never really got explained was the vibrating. Like, there would be these moments where it'd be almost like earthquakes, and they'd be like, oh, well, boys and their toys, at least we know they're working. I don't understand that. I don't know if that was like maybe vibrations from the outside world, or like a train going by or a car going by that they could all feel. But yeah, it didn't make sense as to how they could all feel it at the same time or where it was coming from. I would have liked to see some explanation on that. Another thing we need to talk about is the initiation of Jack into like the Victory Project. They make him like dance. I think this scene is meant to highlight like how alpha men work. Like, maybe Frank's intention is to have Jack, Harry Styles, dance like an idiot and just do whatever he wants to prove himself worthy of the Victory Project, which essentially gives Jack what he wants, which is, you know, his forever home with Alice, where he has control over where she is and what she does. That's all that I can really say about that. Another thing is that I could totally tell where the rewrites in the script were, because I'm sure the script looked much different when Shia LaBeouf was meant to be cast in it. For example, they have Harry Styles do his British accent when he's in Victory, when he's in the simulation, but as soon as they're out, he's American, which I'm not sure why they made that choice to even mention it. Like, why bother writing in that he's like American in the outside world? Just make him British. We don't need an explanation. Just leave him British if you can't do the American accent. And then at the end, which I think is one of the most highly debated points, is Frank's wife killing him. She stabs him at the very end of the film, and she looks at him and she says, "You stupid man." And I think maybe what I like to think is that she was trying to help the other women get out of the simulation and leave Victory, but then she had this huge fat monologue at the dinner scene that we mentioned earlier, where she says, "How dare you be ungrateful? How dare you sit at this table and insult my husband? How dare you even speak out against this? You're lucky to be here." Maybe she was trying to take over the Victory Project. Maybe she was waiting for her perfect moment to kill him. But again, there was no character development. All of the supporting actors were more like plot points than actual characters. So as the audience, we're left with questions. What I really, really, really wanted to see though was Frank's like true form, because all of these people go into the simulation, they pick what they look like, they pick, you know, their accents, as we've seen with Harry. And I just wanted to have like a moment where we see Frank, after he gets stabbed by his wife, like jar in the real world, and he's like ugly and fat, and like we see his true form, you know. I wish that had happened, but those are my notes on unanswered questions. So let me know if you had anything that didn't add up to you in the comments. I'm so excited to hear your guys' thoughts on this. I wish I had more time to make myself a proper script for this video, but as I said, I am a film girly now and I'm working all the time, so I gotta squeeze in videos when I can. And I love my YouTube channel, and I love that you guys stick around and watch. So like this video, leave me a comment on your thoughts on Don't Worry Darling. As for Olivia Wilde as a director, I'm a fan. I think I would have to obviously work with her to get a true opinion, but I like her work and she makes good movies. So even though this one had a lot of holes, it was still very entertaining. And of course, we all love the tea. We all love the drama surrounding it. Anyways, I've got to pick my coworker up. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!
After Don't Worry Darling.